This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in California. I'm here with an author who has a lifelong commitment to excellence and has embarked on a diverse professional path shaped by his rich life experiences. I'm joined with Walt. Thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you for your service in the past.
You're welcome.
I'm going to start off a little bit about yourself. I mean, you're formally educated at San Jose State University. From skiing in Alaska to business ownership in Lake Tahoe, I mean, you really have experienced various endeavors in your life. Before we jump into the chapter really of your life that you wrote about, share with me a little bit, first of all, what your journey looked like prior to combat.
Well, prior to combat, I was a carefree, happy-go-lucky surfer. I graduated from an all-male college preparatory high school, so I got an excellent education. And most guys went on to USC, UCLA. Not me. I decided to major in surfing, drinking beer, and chasing girls. And that's what promptly got me drafted. So, pretty good background. I grew up in Los Angeles. I come from an Irish Catholic family, 8 kids. And that part was wonderful. 6 months later, after being drafted and finding myself in the hot, humid jungles of Vietnam, wasn't so pleasant.
Wow, I mean, what a shock to the system. We're talking about a carefree surfer, and here we are now. Was your personal warrior journey from combat in Vietnam to leadership at Fort Ord easy for you to write about? And how were those journals made into chapters?
Well, the way that came about, I started journaling seriously around 2010, just writing little snippets, anecdotes, snapshot scenes, not only of combat in Vietnam, but family funnies and stuff I wanted to pass down as a legacy to my nieces, nephews, and my family. Anyway, long story short, the VA makes it mandatory for a guy like me to see a post-traumatic stress disorder psychologist after you turn 70, just to make sure you're not harboring any thoughts of suicide. And so I met with this guy, Dr. Keeley. He was wonderful. And he had a writing class on the side, sort of a Rorschach test, to look beneath the veneer of guys with severe post-traumatic stress. Anyway, I started showing him my journals, and he got back to me and said, Walt, this stuff is absolutely terrific. I'm going to help you transpose these journals into chapters, and together we're going to create a memoir. And so that's kind of how it came about.
That is fantastic. Obviously, somebody read it and said, "Hey, you've got something here. Very interesting." I mean, you were drafted in the U.S. Army in 1966. Your book, A Day in the Light Seventh Cavalry. I mean, you didn't want this to be just another war memoir. When you decided to create this book from your writings, what was your intent, would you say?
My intention, ultimately, the book is like Born on the 4th of July or Platoon. It's a pretty much anti-war, just to show the futility of sending 18 and 19-year-old guys halfway across the world to go fight in a war that we should have never been involved in. That theme, that's sort of the subtext. I don't come right out and say it because my main thing was just trying to survive on a day-to-day basis. But I want any 18 or 19-year-old kid who's thinking of joining, let's say, the Marines, to look through my lens and see what combat's really like up close and personal.
Interesting. I mean, so your intent really has now become a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Will surviving against all odds always inspire and captivate readers, would you say? And why so?
Yeah, the resilience came from my faith in God. If you look on the cover of my book, you'll see the first air cav icon wrapped with a rosary. My mother gave me a rosary the day I left for Vietnam, left Los Angeles, and that was always with me. And especially in the inky black darkness of night ambush patrol, where you hear every sound you hear, you think it's a sapper, inching up to cut your throat. That's when I break that rosary out. And, I said, God, please protect me, protect my fellow infantrymen. And he must have been listening to me because
Yep.
when things got really bad, especially the second time I got wounded, I thought, this is it. This is it. I was bleeding profusely, and I pulled my rosary out, and I was staying in act of contrition, thinking, well, I'm going to be up at the pearly gates soon. And that's when I heard a rustling behind me. It was my platoon sergeant low crawling across, the jungle floor, grabbed me by my web gear, and dragged me back behind a copse of tea trees. And then the F-4 Phantom jet showed up, and everything changed.
Wow.
Yeah,
What a story. I've always
yeah,
said my mother's praying on her beads probably kept me out of a lot of troubles. I have no idea, especially growing up. I mean, I'm the same way. This
yeah.
journey of a carefree surfer turned combat infantryman in the Vietnam War. I mean, it's a pretty gritty account about the jungles of Vietnam. Will many of your fellow soldiers relate to this story? And what has been some of the feedback?
Well, yeah, some of my fellow soldiers have, guys I keep in touch with say, you wrote the perfect memoir because you intersperse it with family funnies, surfing adventures in Los Angeles in the early 60s. Even my editor told me, your biggest strength in writing is show me, don't tell me, and dialogue. And they loved it. They said it's just not all doom and gloom. And I would read other books like Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien, and that would set off triggers. Something I would think, oh, yeah, I remember that. And that would start off a line, maybe a paragraph. And look at John Lennon. He wrote A Day in the Life on a cocktail napkin,
Yep.
reading about a royal who was killed in a car crash while he's having coffee.
Yep.
So you just never know when the inspiration strikes.
It's amazing how one idea just triggers something in our past, our memory. We can bring out so much detail without even realizing it. I mean, this is really a roller coaster of adrenaline and emotion. I mean, you're documenting a world where every step could be your last, often dodging bullets, but returning to the world back in one piece. Were you ever recognized for your heroic service in the past?
Yeah. I mean, I have two Purple Hearts, a Bronze Star, combat infantry badge, and I came back to the world. I mean, that was the most transformative moment of my life because I thought I was going back to Vietnam. In fact, when I was in the reassignment barracks in Japan at Kishin Barracks, I actually hustled the supply sergeant for a pair of fatigues. And when that reassignment sergeant came in, he looked at me and he called my name because he had my orders. He goes, "What you doing wearing them fatigues?" I said, "I'm not going back to Vietnam and looking like a dink in pajamas." He says, "Come on up here, boy. Read this." And I read, I saw the orders, destination, Travis Air Force Base. And I left that night on a C-141 Starlifter. It's just unbelievable. I'll never probably experience the joy coursing through my veins. And I went and said a rosary, and I sat outside the chapel on a park bench in a little Japanese tea garden, and my whole life flashed in front of me. So that's the basis of the last 22 chapters, interspersed with how I grew up, how I finally ended up in combat. And
Yeah, we're not talking only the combat story, but the triumphant return when you feel like you've been given a second chance at life, I would imagine. Is the ability to find humor in the darkest moments something we could all learn from as we face our fears today, would you say?
oh, absolutely. I was always kind of known as a class clown, going through 8 years with nuns and 4 years with Dominican priests. I was always getting in trouble, but that transferred over to the camaraderie I felt with my fellow boonie rats, fellow grunts. And that that was just a wonderful feeling. I mean, I never thought I'd feel such love for anybody as I did for those guys who were, had my back. I mean, they were, and
Yeah.
most of us came from a blue collar background. That's just, they didn't have uh, rich parents who can bribe doctors into writing uh, deferments for them. So anyway, it was just an amazing. And then the more I started journaling, the more I thought, I got to get this story out here so people can find out what it was really like. And
Wow. I mean, you really experienced the lyrics of that song. I'm not a fortunate son. You've seen that in your comrades. You've seen that in people you were with. I mean, the
right.
Vietnam journey removed you from the relaxed Catholic schoolboy. It placed you in the horrors of war. Were moments of family life and a belief of God something that you drew strength from quite often, would you say?
Oh yeah, yeah. And then through my healing process in Japan, that's where the book starts. I became, I do rounds with a lieutenant, CQ, and we would have a chaplain join us. And I remember he said to me one night, he said, Madigan, life is a test. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. James 1:12. And then he said, remember that, son. So just to touch on what you were talking about. Yeah. And I, I'd have personal conversations with God every night, like I said, when I was on night ambush patrol. But
You were I mean, your journey now led you to where you are today. You're now wearing a crown, if you will, because your days are now filled with writing, enjoying nature, enjoying the water that you originally loved. Is there a follow-up memoir in the works?
yes, yes. The follow-up memoir pretty much starts where the first one ends. The first one ends when the medics come to take me out in a gurney and put me on that C-141 Starlifter. Second one begins where it lands at Travis Air Force Base, and then from there, a week later, uh, they shipped me off to Fort Ord, and boy, just in time too. June 1967. Guess what that is? The beginning of the summer of love. And
Wow.
yeah, so my job was I was like Brooks in Shawshank Redemption. My job was to wheel around a little library cart from bed to bed. And one of the guys said, "Did you hear about the concert coming to Monterey this weekend?" And anyway, he used to work at the fairgrounds. He snuck us in. So pretty explosive first chapter where I'm sitting there watching Jimi Hendrix squirt lighter fluid on his guitar and offer it up to the rock gods. My
That
mom
is so
loved
cool.
it. She goes, "That's a good chapter to start with."
That is so cool. Like you say, it's not just gloom and doom. You're really sharing your experiences that you had. Many of them you're probably thankful for, and many of them you definitely learned from. Walt, you have experienced the raw intensity of warfare and the journey of a young man thrown in really into the chaos of battle. I mean, is it now important for you to share this history of our world with others?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going to war, whether it's World War II, Korea, Iraq, it's just a timeless journey if you're an infantryman. And I just want to share those experiences. Try and for the reader, especially if it's a young man, 18 or 19, stay strong, stay focused, and stay fit. That was my mantra every day. And my training at Tigerland at Fort Polk, Louisiana really kicked in uh, when things got pretty tough. And so, yeah,
Not
I'm
only you not only kept yourself physically fit, but spiritually fit, and really that is what helped you blaze through, and you're here today. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is his website. On the website, you can learn more about this journey of a day in the life, really of dedication. You can find the book on Amazon and quite a few more links right there on his website as well. Once again, that is a day in the life, 7th Cavalry, a soul-bearing tale of resilience and redemption. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and if you don't know, now you know.